When I talk about the Ultra X80, it is our most powerful point source. And there are going to be some people that will throw that on a sub, just literally throw that on a sub in a small punk club. And that's going to be awesome. But then there are also some people that might throw that on the top of their stage as a front fill or as a side fill because they have big long line arrays on the sides, but there's like 2 rows that each have 5 people in them on the sides that nothing is hitting. And they just need one thing that's going to go all the way over there, but only go over there. Again, that's a lot of what we do. I go back to the Lego bricks. Here's our room, fill it with these Lego bricks in these different ways.
Welcome to the SCL podcast, filmed in the MD Acoustics anechoic chamber at their testing facility in beautiful Gilbert, Arizona. Today, we speak with Katie Murphy, a USC engineering graduate, mentor for those in STEM, and now director of loudspeaker development at Meyer Sound. Her leadership drives cutting-edge innovation in acoustic design and product development, shaping the future of audio-related engineering. Each episode, we bring you compelling conversations, practical advice, and illuminating stories from the minds of industry leaders, educators, innovators, and visionaries who are shaping the world one idea at a time.
Thank you, first and foremost. It looks like, kind of from the background, you do speak a lot for Meyer Sound. Is that true?
Yes, I do.
How often would you say you get to be able to talk to people about what you do?
I would say at this point it's almost once a week.
Wow.
So we're really lucky, right? Our factory is in Berkeley, and we do have a lot of cool stuff to show people. So we do a tour that is a couple hours long, has some different demos, stops by our theater. And so between the demos, between any opportunities like this or opportunities talking at colleges or to different interest groups, I am really able to kind of talk about both myself and the company probably at least once a week.
That's awesome.
Wow. That's sounds like you talk to a lot of people, and hopefully this is as good as those conversations that you have there. So I'd love for you to just introduce yourself.
Yeah, well, my name is Katie Murphy Khulusi, and I am the director of loudspeaker development at Meyer Sound Laboratories in Berkeley, California.
Awesome. And where'd you go to school? How did you end up here?
So, funnily enough, I actually grew up in Chicago, about 1.5 miles away from Shure's headquarters.
Oh.
Never once questioned what that fancy glass building by the movie theater was, as I was just like, oh yeah, that's cool. One of my neighbors was a project engineer for Shure for 25 years, and was like, oh yeah, cool, whatever. And then I went to the University of Southern California for music recording and electrical engineering, and that really kind of started to introduce me to this whole side of live sound.
Interesting. So you went to school for electrical engineering.
Yes.
And you were doing audio engineering, or not engineering,
Yes.
You were doing editing, right?
Yes.
So how did you make that transition from an electrical engineer to this? And my understanding is you have a background in music as well.
Yes. So I grew up and still play the oboe, which is a real weird instrument, and was in little concerto groups, was in my high school's orchestra, did some things in college, have done a few things post-college. I actually really wanted to be a studio lot musician growing up.
Oh, wow.
Because film music is my thing. When you're watching a movie and you hear that little riff of, oh, this character is about to show up because I know that that's his little theme song, that's one of the things that really strikes me, and that really piques my interest. So I wanted to do that. I was too good at math and not good enough at the oboe for that to realistically work itself out. And so when I got to USC, I actually joined the student-run performance venues team. And what that let us do was, kind of depending on your experience, depending on what year you were, you had different jobs in the production of student events. And so that could be anything from karaoke night at the milkshake place with like a PM5D and 5 microphones. Or that could be Elton John is coming to our big auditorium. You guys need to deal with his crew and do what they tell you to do. So there's a wide berth of activities that kind of presented itself when I joined that group. And so as I got older, I was on the audio side of things. And funnily enough, the Bovard Auditorium at USC actually had a Meyer Sound system, which as a part of my training, I had to learn how to operate. And then when I saw a posting for Meyer Sound when I was about to graduate, I was like, I know.
And the rest is history.
I was like,
Here we are.
how convenient, right? Like, you already knew their system a little bit. You probably went in that interview and just blew them away because they're like, oh, you already know the stuff. What's going on here? So that's super interesting. I mean, I understand your love for like film, scores and things. I actually started, this is why I also like to know what, kind of how you ended up here, because I personally started my academic career as in film and video. So I spent a lot of time. How did I end up at an acoustic engineering firm? Well, this isn't my podcast, so we won't talk about that. But can you explain a little bit how electrical engineering and like audio engineering coincide?
So there are a lot of kind of both general principles and getting into the minutia of everything, ways that the two intersect, right? Because at the end of the day, audio engineering doesn't exist without the equipment, and all of the equipment is just an electromechanical system, right? It's all just a big giant RLC circuit that is arranged in different ways. These are Omni near field monitors behind me. Those drivers are just a coil of wire in a magnetic field attached to something that moves. And so if you're coming to audio engineering or loudspeaker manufacturing just in general from an electrical engineering background, kind of what you've learned is how do you break down these super complicated systems and address them kind of little element by little element, because at the end of the day, some of these things are really simple when you break them down. And if you're able to optimize all of these little parts and then put them together in the best way possible, you've just built a loudspeaker. And being in electrical engineering, right?
You make it sound so simple.
Being in electrical engineering, you get through the first couple classes, and I think people either get really passionate about some of the things that they do, the people who work in power, for example, or the people who work at companies like Boeing, Raytheon, where you are kind of a traditional electrical engineer. There are some people that get really passionate about that. I felt like pretty immediately, I was like, what can I do with this? What can I do with this that I like, but that is not just this? Because realistically, this does not pique my interest enough to want to do it or pursue it as a career. And that's why I was really lucky to find both that minor in music recording, where I really started to get experience in the more musical side of things, and through my job, which let me see, okay, there are real world jobs that people have that have engineering backgrounds, but you don't need to be looking at power systems all day.
Yeah, it seems like you just found that perfect storm, right? Like you already had that interest in music, you're already kind of editing, doing stuff with it, and then you had the electrical side. So you found that thing that just intersected perfectly. And then, like I said, you must have been just a shoo-in over at Meyer when they said, hey, you have both these things and you already know our systems. Talk to me about Meyer. Meyer system. Is it
Meyer Sound,
right?
Meyer Sound.
It is Meyer
Yes.
Sound, not Meyer Audio.
Yes.
It's Meyer Sound.
Meyer Sound. Technically, Meyer Sound Laboratories.
Got to get the labs in there.
Yeah, it's important. We have a laboratory. We like to push that.
They spend a lot of money to put the lab in, so you got to get props to the labs. I know what it's like.
Yeah, you want to make sure people know that the lab's there.
Yeah, and it's not just a computer, by the way. Because a lot of companies say, "Oh, we got a lab," and you're like, "Oh, let me see the lab." No, we got like 3 computers. Here's our computer lab. So good for you guys. So talk to us a little bit about your labs.
We got Roger Schwenke, PhD, honorary Mythbuster. This is not a joke. One of our senior scientists, Roger, has been on multiple episodes of Mythbusters.
I love it.
Yeah. So Meyer Sound was founded in 1979 by John and Helen Meyer, and they were in the East Bay. John grew up in the East Bay, going to Oakland Tech High School. And they were really interested in audio. John was working at a hi-fi shop, big deadheads. And he kind of got started at some of the local companies and then actually ended up helping with the Wall of Sound. And at some point was like, I could do this. Like, I have the education and the background. I could make speakers. And they started doing that. And we were down a little bit south of where we are right now for a while. And then they moved up to Berkeley. And most of our offices and all of our manufacturing and warehouses are still up in Berkeley. And John and Helen are still meeting with us every day, really leading the way.
It's awesome.
So still a family-run company.
Wow, that's really
and
cool.
so and we're really lucky, and it's a really cool place to work from an engineering perspective, because every single day we get to ask ourselves, are we a laboratory that does research? Are we a design firm that designs loudspeakers, or are we a manufacturer that manufactures loudspeakers? And every day the answer is yes.
To all of it.
all of those things. And so we're all contained kind of in, at least the Berkeley-based people are all contained in this campus that takes up a couple blocks interspersed in West Berkeley. And I get to walk from my office where the engineers sit to the manufacturing floor to the house where all the researchers sit to John and Helen's office, and then over here to the labs over here. And we really make sure that as a company, we're honoring all of those different elements of who we are and bringing them together.
That's you just blew my mind. I didn't know any of that. I knew what Meyer Sound was, but I didn't know that you guys have basically from A to Z with their products, as opposed to some who develop things and then send it off, right?
You're gonna get so much hate when the Meyer people kind of like, I'm gonna say, when your followers go,
they're gonna come for you.
They're gonna come for you. And here's the thing, like, so many people in the audio world would love to talk to you, guaranteed. And he's like, I know nothing about you.
I know about you.
We're gonna get so much hate. But you know what? That's the point.
Look, there's 1,000 people who probably listen to this podcast that are in my position, where they want to know. They want to know the information, right? Some of us already know a lot of this stuff.
Brainiacs.
Yeah, some of us just don't. Now, you're director of audio engineering, correct?
Loudspeaker development.
Loudspeaker development. That's what it was. That's what it was. So, being director of loudspeaker development, you've obviously had to work on stuff. What's something that's been that one thing that was really, really that like crowning achievement that you've had so far?
Yes, her name is Panther, and it is our pretty much best-selling line array. So it's a large format line array, right? When you think a big music festival, right, you see on the main stage, there are those big long hangs of boxes. There are maybe subs behind them, and then a big, huge field poles, and then more hangs of boxes as the delays, and it goes on and on depending on how big
that's the part I know.
So during the pandemic, we were hunkering down and working on a few different things, and we got contacted by Major Tom, who is the group that puts on Ed Sheeran's tours out of the UK. And they were feeling that Ed was going to do a huge tour basically as soon as they were able to really start planning it, when the pandemic started to subside a little bit. And so Lars Bergard, the owner of Major Tom, called John Meyer and basically said, they're longtime friends, big Meyer users. They've been a big collaborator of ours. And they basically said, the way that tours are going right now, video is really, really important. You're going to be able to sell out an entire stadium if the video can be seen from almost every seat. If it sounds good and looks good for everybody, there's not going to be a barrier necessarily to buying those nosebleed tickets. And more popular recently has actually been in the round tours, where there is essentially a donut-shaped stage where everybody, especially an artist like Ed Sheeran, who's literally with his guitar running around this stage, if they're really active, everybody both feels like they're participating in the show, and you can sell floor seats. But that makes it so important that the speakers are right, that the video is right, and that everything works out structurally. And so their prompt to us was, can you make a speaker that is the shape and size and weight of a Lion, which is one of our older large format line arrays, but behaves like a Leo, which is its older, bigger brother, right? So essentially, can you make something that's a little cheaper, weighs less, but is more powerful? Also, we load out of Brussels in 8 months. So if you can get them designed, built, into Brussels in 8 months, we'll buy 250 of them right now. And we were like, well, troops, you got it? And we were all like, we'll try. And so we basically dove headfirst in 2021 to building a speaker for an international tour in 2022, which, looking back at it, obviously the business foresight on both Major Tom's and John Meyer's points to have been able to see that that was going to work and that our company was going to be invested in that really, really paid off. And at that point in development, we had some people that had left from COVID, some people that were moved around into different roles, and there had kind of become an opportunity for me to move a little bit more into leadership. And so I was kind of bridging both a leadership role and a design engineer role where I designed the horn for Panther. I designed a lot of the little mechanical pieces here and there that it was just, who knows, SolidWorks, somebody needs to do this. And then kind of in addition, I was the project manager and the program manager and the director of engineering at the time. So that so many hats.
So you are as important as I made you sound.
Yeah, that's right.
And so when I really think back and look at my career at Meyer, I've been able to do so many cool things. But if there's one thing that I put my heart and soul into and that I look at and I go, I did that. That's what I see Panther as. So
cool.
Yeah.
So you mentioned in that you designed the cone. Can you explain to me? Or the horn. The horn. You designed the horn. So obviously I don't know the difference between the cone and the horn. So what exactly needs to be designed there? Like, can you explain a little bit?
What is somebody in your position what's the design entail? Like, what does that look like for example, let's say you're talking to a high school kid who knows nothing about loudspeakers. They know a speaker, but they say, I want to be just like you. What are they, what are you designing? What does that really mean?
So a horn is kind of like a Lego set where you are getting different constraints that are physical, and it's put this thing together the best possible way to make it look like this. And so when you look at a normal speaker, right, there are two things. There's a low driver with a cone, and then there's some sort of high driver up here. Right. This is a domed tweeter with a little bit of a horn that's kind of more of a waveguide. But the big boys, the really big speakers, those usually have two low drivers on either side and what's called a compression driver attached to a horn. And essentially, right, we can all picture what a horn is. It can be a blowhorn, a megaphone, something that takes sound that is really, really small and makes it big, right? But in a pattern. And so horns will always have a pattern that is either circular, right, thinking from my mouth, it's going all the way around in a circle, just out. Or a lot of the time in our case, it's coming out of my mouth, but it is 80 degrees horizontally and 60 degrees vertically. And so horn design is just taking a 1.4 inch circle, make that into something that is 10 inches by 10 inches, a square in front, and is 6 inches long, and then run some simulations and get it as close to 80 degrees by 60 degrees as you can. So that's why I kind of say it's like Legos, right? Like it's like, take these constraints that exist and make them into a shape that looks like you want it to at the end.
And that's how you do it. Duh.
And done. And you're done.
Maybe I'll make one now.
And do it and under your constraints, you had 8 months or whatever. So that sounds like crazy. You guys pretty much were probably running the entire time. Like,
yeah.
Was that like a hectic time for you guys?
An absolutely hectic time.
You didn't even sleep.
I was like, a short window for a very large, this isn't a small little thing. It's.
So when you get interviewed, I have another question because you're talking to a lot of the AV folks, I'm sure, right? So a lot of the podcasters typically are AV. True or false?
Yeah.
So they already know a lot about gadgets and gizmos. And here, we don't work on those gadgets and gizmos. So we don't have any exposure to, we have some loudspeakers here that we make noise with, but we're not, designing that stuff. So when they talk to you, what are they most excited to talk to you about? The Panther? Is that Panther?
Sometimes it's a specific product. We have been focusing very, very intently on trying to create solutions instead of just releasing products. Yeah. So we have a really, really great both technical support and product management department that are all around the world and have people who have, we have some people on our tech support team that used to be on tour and decided it was time to hang that up and they wanted to be in one place. We have people who worked for installers, people that are mixers. We want to make sure that those teams are talking to the people in the field and not just going, would you buy this product? But they're going, what problem do you have that we haven't solved yet?
Got it.
What is something that's going on that you're like, God, if you guys just had a box that was about this size and about this price and could be used at a club for only 200 people and I could use two boxes and 2 subs, God, that'd be perfect. And we're like, oh, yeah, wouldn't it be crazy if we did that? And then 2 months later, it'll be introducing the Ultra X80, our largest point source yet. So a lot of the times recently, people have been talking to me about the problems that they have and the way that we as a company can create a solution for it, not just oh yeah, that product is cool. It's, hey, it's cool that you guys solved this problem for me.
Got it.
Yeah.
Ultra X80, it's the largest point source. I like how you said the point source. So how come we talk about, point source, but then you have a line array? You just said the largest point source, but then you said 250, so I'm just piecing it together, right? 250 loudspeakers for Ed Sheeran, largest point source. So yeah, fill us in on that.
Yeah, so if you think about things honestly, some of it is the way that you guys work as well, or any part of this industry, the extended industry, where we have a room this size, we have this many people that are set up or standing in these different configurations, we have this much of a physical structure to be able to hang things from, we have this much money, and we have this much power available. What can we do in order to kind of plan that room to set it up? And sometimes that is a music festival. And the most important thing is that you have a really good horizontal coverage to cover the whole field from all the way to the left to all the way to the right. And because you have a giant structure in place, you can hang 20 of them. So it doesn't matter what that vertical is, because you're going to hang 20 of them. So you want a really good horizontal. You want them to be able to hang together really well in whatever shape you want. So you need all the physical restraints and the gadgets and the gizmos to be able to put them into that shape. And they need to be loud. Thumbs up, go make me that. That's a big line array. But sometimes you're a wedding DJ and you want one sub and you're going to put a pole on that sub, and you want a box that has the widest horizontal and the widest vertical that you possibly can, so you can cover as much as of the dance floor that you want. But that can only be one box. That can't be multiple. So it can't be too heavy, and it can't cost too much, and you need a ton of coverage. You want it to be loud, but it doesn't have to blow your ears off because you're inside. So that's point source.
Big.
These are near field monitors, right? You would put these on the top of your console when you're mixing, if that's post-production, something live, etc. So there are all of these different vertical markets kind of within the broader industry. And as a company, we really try to hit a solution that can be used in different ways. Because when I talk about the Ultra X80, it is our most powerful point source. That's a new product that's going to be shipping at the end of, or at the beginning of this upcoming year. And there are going to be some people that will throw that on a sub, just literally throw that on a sub in a small punk club. And that's going to be awesome. But then there are also some people that might throw that on the top of their stage as a front fill or as a side fill because they have big long line arrays on the sides, but there's like 2 rows that each have 5 people in them on the sides that nothing is hitting. And they just need to go, they need one thing that's going to go all the way over there, but only go over there. So it's, again, that's a lot of what we do. I go back to the Lego bricks. It's, here's our room, fill it with these Lego bricks in these different ways.
Do you guys design most of the venues like with your team, or do you rely on kind of third-party people, firms? So
for the most part, we design most of the rooms. We have a design services team, and a lot of our tech support team members do also do the designs. We have a tool called Map 3D, which essentially, if you import the drawings of the room, you'll be able to place our speakers into that room and actually see a heat map of, is everywhere getting the coverage that I want? Where would I have to be flying them? How high above the ground would they have to be, et cetera? And we're really lucky, again, because of just the breadth of knowledge that our teams have. Well, Bob McCarthy, our director of system optimization, that literally wrote the cookbook on how to design loudspeaker systems, he will travel around the world. And for example, we don't want to say co-sponsor, but we work with, as the exclusive sound provider, with the Roskilde Festival, which is outside of Copenhagen in Denmark. And he'll travel and both work on the main stage and have designed all of the stages.
That's cool.
So it's really important to us. We will also, we'll work with the Arabs, we'll work with consultants, but at the end of the day, we want to make sure that our products are being used in a way that represents the product. So, and actually puts our best foot forward.
Robert, you're going to have to spin up your punk band again, get really famous, and then they will be a client of yours.
We'll have just the little thing.
Oh, you'll just use the Ultra 80?
The Ultra 80.
Oh, man. We want to go big. No, that's awesome. I
mean, maybe we could have still been a band if we actually sounded good.
Yeah.
Because clearly I didn't know anything about loudspeakers.
So, hey, real quick question, too, for you. What would be the thing you want the audience, our target audience, to know about Meyer and about kind of what you're doing?
The biggest thing to us is that we put kind of an honest sound out there. So the one of our recent marketing taglines has been, hear it right. And everything that we do to try to get as faithful a replication as possible of what is going into the speaker. So if there's one thing that we really want people to take away from Meyer, it's that what you're getting out is what you're putting in, because we aren't the artists. We are simply trying to amplify what the artist is doing. We want to be the ones that every time when you see a Meyer Sound system at a festival, in a venue, at a theater install, oh, I know that what I'm putting in is what I'm going to get out. They're not going to color the sound at all. I don't have to worry about anything changing what I'm trying to do, right? Because it is an art. The artist themselves is putting it out there, but then also the mixer. Like the effects that a mixer adds, it's important to get that right and be reproducing what they want. So,
absolutely.
Hear it right.
Hear it right. I like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I got to get famous because I want to be able to tour with your rig. It's, you know what, in another lifetime. I mean, you know, that would be awesome.
Still got time.
No, man.
Yeah. I don't. If you guys, if you guys have a chance, the Metallica in the Round show, I think they did actually just wrap up their tour, but they had a crazy in the Round show.
Well, I was going to ask if you guys worked on that because I went and saw that.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, I had seen them years and years and years ago compared to now, and I mean, it sounds amazing. Like it was what you expect to hear. And I've been to plenty, you know, small punk shows to large concerts, and I've gone to really big concerts that I'm like, this does not sound anything like them. So it kind of goes back to your point of whatever you're putting in, and unless they're really putting in really bad, and so we were getting really bad out. I don't know. You know, I had to believe that maybe it was some of the mixing and maybe it was the equipment, just different things like that. So,
yeah. And one of the things too about that show is, so that is Panther. And in addition, our newest sub from last year, which is called the 2100. It's a single 21-inch driver. So like the biggest boy. And I talk about our director of system optimism. But so another fun fact, right? The labs in Meyer Sound labs, some of it is also our software, and we do a lot of spatial software. We have a system right now called Space Map Go, but the original version of that system, Space Map, kind of iPad app version of that, is being used with Metallica. They have different effects that they kind of fly over the crowd in different ways. We've actually figured out how to make that whole show stereo. No matter where you're sitting, you will hear that in left-right stereo in the round, which is crazy. So yeah, no, we've been working on that show too.
No, that's super fascinating. I love it. And like I said, it sounded great because I actually experienced it, and I had no idea that was Meyer, and I had no idea that was Panther. You know, with some of the stuff that you talked about, you know, with Panther, and, you know, you talked about how you guys are not wanting to just put out product, right? You're trying to solve solutions. Where do you think the future holds for audio engineering and live sound? Like, is it things are going to get smaller but work, you know, just as loud and be as good? What do you think the future holds for live sound?
I think that, and this is the dumbest answer, and I am so sorry, things are both going to get smaller and bigger. So music is more accessible than it's ever been. Yeah. Right? Like, as time has gone on through the early 2000s, 2010s, right? Like, we talk about GarageBand, we talk about people in their basements, in their attics doing this, in their garages. That's still exploding. Like, the number of artists that are going from super small, but look at Chapel Roan. The artists that are going from super small to having the biggest crowds keeps growing every single year. Yet that has not taken away at all from the Taylors, the Eds, the Beyoncés, the Metallicas. So you're seeing kind of this dichotomy where things are both really accessible and people are going to small clubs to see shows of their favorite artists that they saw on TikTok or that they saw on Instagram, that there's only 200 people in there, but those 200 people know every word to every song and they're going to go to as many stops as they can. That's not stopping Ed Sheeran from selling 82,000 seats at SoFi Stadium and selling out almost every single football stadium that he's going to. So the way we see it is we need to be making products that can be accessible to people and that you don't need to have been an audio engineer for years and years and years to be able to use. Like, we want you to be able to take our stuff out of the box, plug it in, and know that it's going to be pretty dang good, even if you basically just put a microphone into it. So we kind of see, and I kind of see the industry as having this dichotomy and continuing to have that because people have different amounts of money to spend on shows, but people aren't stopping. Like that has not stopped.
What happens if you put a microphone in front of a speaker normally?
Oh, feedback.
Oh. That's good. I have my 5-year-old and 8-year-old. They love to do that. Karaoke night at our house, they're like, beep, and I'm just like, whoa. So
The feedback, man.
gotta relax. I know that there's companies out there that are working on that, but that's awesome that you guys are solving those problems, right? That's interesting. Well, that's good.
The last thing I kind of wanted to talk to you about, or last few things, is you are a woman in audio engineering, which I have to imagine you're more of a minority than the majority. What do you have? What do you see happening with women in this space, and not just women too, but what would you say to people who are looking to get into audio engineering or have some type of thoughts to get into it?
Yeah, so the industry is changing. It is changing very slowly. Like you said, actually both engineering and audio engineering are very predominantly male, predominantly white, and actually predominantly older as well.
We run into the same problem with ours as well.
In our field, same thing.
Yeah, and so kind of what I always try to tell people is that it has to start somewhere. And they're kind of that goes in two different ways. And one of those ways is if, like myself, you are able to find yourself in a position of authority or a position where you do kind of have some influence over the way things are going. You got to always lower the ladder behind you, because it's not just enough to climb up. You need to make sure that others climb up behind you. So for the people that are able to find themselves in a position like me, I say that. And for everybody else, I try to really emphasize that I didn't know that my job existed in college.
Okay.
I started as an acoustic test engineer. If you would have said those words to me, I'd be like, what are you talking about? What is a test engineer? That's not one of these arbitrarily defined engineering disciplines that I'm aware of. There are so many jobs that people don't know about, or that people think that they're not qualified for because of the way that we talk about needing a college degree or needing a master's or needing a PhD. And sometimes you do need that, but a lot of times you don't. Yet the way we talk about it makes it seem like you do, or that you can't, right? That whole catch-22 of how am I supposed to get an entry-level job when that entry-level job needs 2 years of experience? Like, no, this is supposed to be my experience. So I try to always tell people, not everything is face value. A lot of the times you can, if you find a company that you really like, you can find different recruiters, you can find different jobs. Honestly, just reach out to people in that company and go, hey, I'm so sorry to take up your time, but if you have a few seconds, would you mind speaking to me about your role, what your company does, and if you're looking to hire anybody? Because for women, for minorities, for basically anybody that is unfortunately not an older white man, a lot of the times nobody's going to advocate for us. Like, you need to sell yourself like a product. Like, you need to market yourself as an asset, because that's what you are. And the worst anybody could ever say is no. And that, even as an adult, that is really scary, the thought of you asking for something and somebody saying no. But we need to be persistent, because otherwise it is going to stagnate. It is going to stay the way that it is, and it will never change. And that goes for, right, a minority, again, being younger people in this industry. If we don't ask for those promotions, if we don't try to put ourselves out there and say, this is what I want and this is what I would like to be doing, please give me an opportunity to do that, they're not necessarily going to come to us.
That's good words of wisdom, and good insight. I think I was just going to say, to add on to that, through the podcasts, one of the things I really like about it is you learn how to tell your story and the importance of that story. And so being able to hear the story, and hopefully this goes out and inspires the younger generations, and even anybody at any age, to keep trying, push yourself further. Like you said, learn more, be curious. It only will serve you well, because as you look to grow, that's how you go up. That's how you improve yourself, right? So that's great.
Yeah, definitely. I hear all the time people thinking that there's only so much we can do in the realm of audio engineering or acoustics or anything like that. And I sometimes wonder if it's is it only because we run into the problem of it being a lot of older men or older people in general, and if we can get that young, fresh in there, we can start seeing those boundaries kind of get pushed a little bit, and we as a company actually try and strive for that. So I'm actually really glad that you said that. So thank you.
Yeah, and there are also there are just so many different ways that you can get more involved that we typically don't think about in engineering, right? Because sometimes you just think about it as, if I didn't get a bachelor's and then a PhD, or a bachelor's, master's, PhD, or bachelor's and master's, I will not be a leader. Yeah. Or if I don't have the title manager and I don't people manage, I won't be a leader. I won't be able to influence things. But it's like, first off, the smartest person in the room always has influence. Like the subject matter expert or principal engineer will always be a leader. The project manager will always be a leader. They don't people manage, they just manage projects. Like the mentors will always be leaders. Oh yes, and also always find a mentor. Always find a mentor. Seek them out if you have to. Be a little pushy about it, because it's, how are we supposed to know? This is such a weird industry. Right? It's an incredible industry, but it's so weird. And they don't teach you this in school. They don't teach you this in life. We just so happen to have found our way here, and being able to talk to somebody about it. You need that. Okay, I'm off my soapbox.
I love it. No, this is, hey, again, just remember, and I, when I first met you, kind of when we were chatting, one of the things I told you was one of the reasons we had the podcast was for mentorship.
Yeah.
It was like one of those things where, I mean, I'm young-ish. I don't feel so young anymore. But growing up and starting the company at a younger age, I felt like, yes, I had people to look for mentors. Yes, I had previous employers. But once you kind of get to a certain level, you kind of have to look for more inspiration. You kind of have to go out and search for that. And, you know, no one's going to do that for you. You kind of have to do that. And it's the same thing as like engineering. No one's going to tell you how to design a loudspeaker. Yeah, there's all these concepts. Yeah, there's other things. But for innovation or to do things that are new, it's hard. It's really hard. It's expensive. It takes a lot of time. You have to be dedicated to it. But the mentoring part of this is that it can be done. Look at those that are successful. Look where you've come. Like you know, look where you're going. It's like all of us still have a long career ahead of us, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it. But like, you know, like that's the fun part about this, right? Like we're just still writing our stories. And so that's awesome that, you know, I think what you're saying hits it right on the head. And I hope that you can use this podcast in the future. Even you'll have the link, you'll see it. Even if you go out and try to recruit, hey, this is why. Like I don't feel like there's much information out there that companies spend a lot of time explaining why they should recruit, who they recruit, and what they have to offer. Yeah, every company thinks they're great, but really it's the people that make the company. And so like this is you're hitting it right on the head. Like I think you're amazing, and you're doing, you know, you get to go talk to students, it sounds like already, and you're already doing what you're doing. So it sounds like you kind of won the lottery, and we're happy for you. I'm happy for you. So congrats on that. And thank you again for being on this podcast. It's been awesome.
Yeah. Thank you, Katie. We really do appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for having me. I know it sounds like I hate to talk, but
oh yeah, totally.
I know the feeling.
We could make this thing go like for 4 hours, and people, but you know, it'd be like, oh man, this is so long.
No,
this is great.
What I really like though is you did mention mentor, and if you go back and listen to a lot of our other episodes, it's a very common concept that comes up with a lot of engineers is, you know, find that mentor, find a mentor, find a mentor. And the mentors can take lots of different, you know, like ways of looking at a mentor. So I thought it was really funny that you were like, I almost forgot, but very important, find a mentor. And I was like, yep, find a mentor. Always find a mentor. Especially when you're, I mean, we'll probably cut some of this out, especially when you're somebody like me who I would have never dreamed I'd be sitting right here doing this. Well, maybe doing this, but you know, for an acoustic engineering firm, working in that realm would have, I mean, never been something on my radar ever.
Oh yeah, same. No, same. Again, because we have no idea what jobs there are in the real world in this industry. Because how would we know unless you were sitting down with somebody in the industry? You would never know.
Didn't even know it existed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. We really do appreciate it. It's been a great conversation.